These allegedly true home invasion stories are told by the victims. Prepare to be terrified by their real-life horror encounters alone at home stories. Double-check your locks and security and dim the lights. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. Some children at a very young age undergo a trauma so terrifying that it never leaves them. It haunts their thoughts and dreams whenever they are alone. I'm one of those kids. My twin sister and I were raised by our aunt and uncle. Our parents were killed in a tragic accident when we were still in diapers. Neither of us remembers them. Our aunt and uncle became our parents. We called them Mom and Dad. They had one child, our cousin, who became our big brother when he was 2 years older. Grandma moved in with us after Grandpa died when we were 7 and David, our older brother, was 9. This was good for everyone because Mom and Dad worked long hours. Mom worked at the diner and sometimes had the night shift, and Dad drove for Old Dominion Freight, so he was often away for days. Jane and I shared a room. David and Grandma had their rooms upstairs, and Mom and Dad had their room at the end of the hall. It was a big house, but old. The neighborhood was the same, mostly big old houses with a small yard out front. It was a lovely area when they were built in the 1920s, but now it's primarily run down, but not awful. Most everyone is working, but not rich. The night that this story took place was much like any other. Mom was on the late shift, and Dad was on an overnight haul to Virginia. David was up in his room playing video games online. Jane and I were working on a puzzle on the living room coffee table, and Grandma was watching TV. I don't remember the details of the day, but it was after our school night bedtime of 9 o'clock, so it had to be a weekend night. Grandma had told us to head off to bed, so Jane and I brushed our teeth and climbed into our bunk bed. I'm on the bottom. We heard Grandma going up the stairs to her room. The stairs creaked as she went, so we knew she had gone to her room for the night. I'm usually a heavy sleeper, but something woke me up. First, I thought Grandma was going to the toilet as the floorboards creaked. But then, they went back and forth in the hallway, which was very weird. I listened from the bed and heard whispering. This confused me because who would Grandma be talking to at this time of night? I turned on my desk lamp and opened the bedroom door, and what I saw with the light from my desk flooding the hallway still haunts me. A tall, skinny woman was leaning against the wall, murmuring to herself, just talking to herself in a scratchy voice, saying nonsense stuff. She was stark naked. When the light from the bedroom fell on her, her head shot up like a deer in car lights. Black eyes stared at me from sunken sockets. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I stepped back and slammed the door and locked it. Jane was sitting up on the top bunk screaming even though she hadn't even seen the naked woman. She was crying because I was screaming. Then came the pounding of one fist, then the other repeatedly against the door, and a harsh, raspy voice shouting a name. Ronald. Ronald, open this door before I beat you. Then came Grandma's high-pitched voice. It was distinct, clear, and firm. Get the hell out of here. And with that, she charged the intruder. My grandma was in her 70s, but she was quick as lightning. She nailed the lady with a roundhouse and knocked her to the floor. The woman screamed, "Ronald, get in here!" Jane and I stayed locked in the bedroom, shaking in fright as Grandma battled this creature. After a minute, the crazy lady ran from the house and disappeared into the darkness. We could hear her screaming, "Ronald!" as she ran. Grandma bolted the front door and called the police, who arrived in 10 minutes. Grandma had simply forgotten to deadbolt the front door before retiring to bed, and this being a sketchy neighborhood, some drug addict had found her way in. Seeing what I saw at such an impressionable age prevented me from sleeping in that house. We eventually moved, but I still don't sleep well, haunted by that chilling nightmare. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? It's a real-life nightmare induced in REM. In the rapid eye movement phase of sleep, we tend to dream vividly. I had never experienced such lucid dreaming that my body responded to the rapid eye movement cycle of sleep. However, my friend Mary suffers from extreme nightmares. She explained to me specific stimulators during the day could turn her dreams into bone-chilling nightmares straight out of hell. I've never been afraid of the dark. That is, until after my 21st birthday. Before that, I was thrilled with horror movies, haunted houses, Ouija boards, and anything with an adrenaline scare factor. I loved that it gave me the persona of a daredevil, and in high school it impressed the girls with how fearless I was. Therefore, there was little chance of sleep paralysis occurring to me, so I let any thought pass without a second consideration. One night, Mary called me after midnight, probably 2 or 2:30 in the morning, way before sunrise, I know. She was frightened from another episode of sleep paralysis in which she experienced some very dark evil. She asked me to come quickly and keep her company until she was sure it had passed. I drove to her house and used the key she had given me several months before. I went into her bedroom and found her sound asleep in bed. She was breathing peacefully with no sign of disturbance, so I didn't wake her. I just made myself comfortable in the overstuffed armchair and read the news on my cell phone in the dark. 30 or 40 minutes passed with her quietly slumbering. So I got up and headed into the kitchen to make a pot of coffee, intending to watch over her until the morning light. I heard Mary in the bedroom as I turned on the coffee maker. It was a kind of choking scream, a type of scream like a scream coming from underwater. It panicked me as I ran back to her bedside, turning on the table lamp. Her eyes were wide open, darting back and forth, air gurgling from her mouth. Her body shook with spasms, throwing her in twisted directions, arms one way and legs in another. I figured this was one of her sleep paralysis occurrences, and I spoke to her in a calming voice, trying to relieve her terror and let her know I was there. As quickly as it came on, it subsided. Once again, Mary was peacefully sleeping. I thought it best not to wake her, so I returned to the kitchen and poured a cup of coffee, trying to calm myself. All was silent for a short while when I got a text from Mary saying the nightmare wouldn't stop. I ran back into her room, and there, standing over her bed, was a tall, skinny man. I shouted, "Get out of here!" The man with a skull-shaped face and deep sunken eyes looked over to me and pointed with a crooked finger to my forehead, forcing me to step backward. He effortlessly stepped around me, and as silently as a breath of air, whisked from the house through an open window. I called the police, who arrived within minutes and found a man hiding behind the house. As it turned out, Mary's sleep paralysis episode was stimulated by this ghostly intruder who entered her home through a window that didn't lock to steal food and was fascinated by Mary's REM sleep delusions he had stumbled upon. He had been doing this for months and came back apparently to eat and watch her thrash in the night, and then would disappear as quickly as he had come. The police took him away. I have never experienced anything like this, and it tripped the fear factor I have never been able to overcome. After college, which was about 12 years ago, I moved to Boston for my first job. I didn't have much money for an apartment of my own, so I looked on Craigslist under housemate wanted, and I found one quickly. I'm a quiet guy and like to keep my place clean, but I'm not put off by having a housemate who likes to party and is a little bit of a mess. And that is what I found. Tom was a bartender who was a night owl. He worked late and often brought home girls he saw in the bar to party with him until sunrise. It messed with my sleep habits, but I endured and sometimes enjoyed the girls he sweet-talked into staying the night. Tom was a handsome and talkative guy who could get any girl into his trance. I joked that he was Dracula's son, as he slept all day in his crypt only to emerge at night to drink the blood of unsuspecting girls. He wasn't a terrible guy, he just liked to party. Well, our apartment was on the second floor of a walk-up. The main entry was always secure, and we had an intercom when the bell rang to speak with whoever was at the door. But the electronic door release hadn't worked in a long time, so we had to go down to open the door and let our visitors in. It was a little inconvenient, but no big deal, and the lower rent reflected many things like that in the apartment. After about a month of living together, I knew Tom's routine pretty well, so I was surprised one late night when the doorbell rang. I got up and went to the intercom to see who was there. On my way, I passed Tom's room, and I could see he had his TV on from the blue light coming from under his door, so I knew he was in. At the intercom, I asked who it was, and a girl's voice answered, "It's Emily, I'm here to see Tom." This was a little unusual, as the girls usually came home with Tom, but I didn't think anything of this and went down to open the door. Through the door glass, I saw a tall, attractive girl about 21 or 22 years of age standing alone. I had never seen this girl before, but that wasn't unusual, as Tom always brought home random girls, and she didn't look threatening. So I let my guard down and cracked open the door. She smiled and repeated, "I'm here to see Tom?" I replied, "Okay, he's upstairs, follow me." I pushed the door open. She took the handle, and I turned and started up the stairs. But after I had taken a few steps, I looked over my shoulder, and this girl, Emily, was not following me. She was standing at the door, holding it open, looking back over her shoulder as if expecting someone else. A wave of panic washed over me as I realized something terrible was about to happen. I skipped up 2 steps at a time, and as I ascended the floor landing, I could hear heavy footsteps running up the stairs behind me. Not the steps of a girl, but of an athletic man climbing the flight of stairs fast. I darted into the apartment. I saw a glimpse of the man behind me. He had a blackjack in his hand, raised to strike me, but I was a second too quick for him, and the door slammed closed and locked. His image is etched into my mind. A strong, well-built man wearing a black pub t-shirt from the Black Rose, a tavern not far from the apartment. It's not a biker bar or anything, but it does get some tough Irish customers. This guy looked like a bouncer. Big arms, lots of tats. He struck the door once with a tremendous crash, and followed with what I describe as a 1-2 punch. They were not meant for me, but I would have been the first on the receiving end before he reached Tom. My body shot with adrenaline as I stared at the door, hoping it would hold the punishing blows. I stood paralyzed as the guy shouted threats and curses with each pummeling thrust against the door. This didn't last long, maybe only a minute, before he stomped down the stairs and exited into the night. I yelled for Tom, who awoke and came into the living room. I told him what had just happened, and he told me that he had met an Emily earlier in the day, but she didn't want anything to do with him, and he pretty much left her alone. Why she brought some thug to the apartment to thrash him, he had no idea. Anyway, I moved out that weekend and found an apartment that was not shared with anyone.
Subscribe.